Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. I'm pretty sure it's Saturday. So we're just here. I heard the minority had a press conference earlier. I was hoping we could do one together, but this is what it is. And so we're just here to announce that we have reached a bonding agreement, capital investment agreement. I think that's very exciting. We had put one, this House had passed one earlier this year. We put it forward in the Senate. Unfortunately, the Senate Republicans didn't join us, but we are glad now that we came together and have this historic agreement that will help communities all across the state of Minnesota.
Sure, and I'll just say, we had set aside 2.2985 in the capital investment target. And if we had to just use that as cash, it would limit the total amount of projects we could do in the state. And so when we were in the go-it-alone mode where we had Senate Republicans refusing to cooperate, we had a $1 billion cash bill on the Senate floor ready to go. As a result of this agreement, there will be $2.5 billion in investments across the state. There will be $1.5 billion in general obligation bonding projects, and there will be $1 billion in cash projects. And so we're taking $300 million out of the money we had set aside for capital investments, and we're working together to provide one-time assistance to nursing homes on top of the pots of money that they have available to them in the HHS bill that we passed earlier this week, or yesterday. In the Health and Human Services bill that already passed, there is a $90 million fund for workforce retention. And there is also $100 million, I believe, either 50 or 100 million in zero interest loans for nursing homes. So this 300 million will be on top of the amounts that Democrats have already allocated to nursing homes in the budget. So we're hoping to figure out a way to deliver this assistance to nursing homes that doesn't foul up their reimbursements in the future. We want to make sure that it is a net gain for them and that it doesn't just get subtracted from their reimbursements down the road and cause both problems for them and for the state budget. So over the next 48 hours, the Health and Human Services gurus who know the most about nursing home funding, which is very complex, will be working to put together a package that works for all of us. I think that it's great that we reached an agreement. Reasonable timeframes for the rest of the bills will be really important for us to finish on time with great results for Minnesotans. I'm a little frustrated that it took us until 1:40 in the morning last night to get this deal, but better late than never, and it's a really good deal for all the communities across the state of Minnesota. And we'll take any questions if you have any.
Why was the money for nursing homes all right for you to agree to when Republicans had also pushed for things like, bigger or more money for rebates or tax cuts or other things? So what about the nursing home money was more amenable to you?
Do you want to speak to that, or you want me to?
You can start.
We offered them some options of what they wanted to do with money, and this was the choice that they made. We were open to other options, including increasing the rebates, but this was the choice that the Republicans made.
And
the rates might have increased.
that was part of previous negotiations, so we'll just leave it at there. Senator Johnson and I had multiple conversations about that. We had said numerous times that we didn't want to tie the bonding bill to the tax bill, but in conversations, might have been yesterday or the day before, he expressed why that was important to his caucus, and so I took it to the speaker and we continued those discussions, and then that's what got us here today. And I think I'm just going to go, this was the negotiated agreement, and I think it is helpful. This will provide projects that communities want, from wastewater to local parks to, I think money is going to go into help the women's Shakopee prison. So this is projects that will help people across the state, and it's jobs across the state, which is also important.
So in terms of this deal, there are some GOP projects added in addition to the $300 million that they get for, I guess, abiding by
So the original two bills were very equally balanced. And then when we couldn't get an agreement with them to join us on the last bill, the cash-only bill, 2 weeks ago, we moved forward. So there are some House Republican projects in that bill, and then if you look at it, there's, Representative Tapke and Shakopee has a project in there. So There were Senate Republicans who had projects for their community in that cash bill. But we moved forward because that's what we needed to do, because we thought we haven't had a bonding bill since October 2020, and we thought these projects were shovel-ready last summer when they didn't, last May when they didn't pass it. We thought they were shovel-ready, these communities needed it, and so we thought it was the right thing to do. So we were prepared to move forward with a cash bill that had more Democratic projects, but there were Republican projects in there that helped. And I won't even say the Republican projects. We had projects across the state, some of them represented by Republicans and some of them represented by Democrats. But the projects are for the entire state, and they will benefit the entire state and communities across the state.
And I think it says it in the letter, but just to be clear, so any project that has been listed publicly on a spreadsheet when either House File 669 or 670 was passed or considered will get the highest amount that's been publicly revealed. So if somebody had a project that was at 5 million in the bills passed by the House, and then it was reduced in the cash bill to 3.5, they'll be restored to 5 million in the final agreement. So it is going to be quite a monstrosity of drafting for the reviser, and that's why we had given so many deadlines to the Republicans earlier. And so it will be a superhuman feat for the reviser to draft this agreement in time for us to get it done by Monday at midnight. And it just simply remains to be seen whether they can do that. It is an unreasonable expectation that we're putting on them, but they have very often worked miracles, and so people have pretty high expectations for our incredible nonpartisan staff.
If it is a just paper push timing difficulty, I mean, do you envision having one day of a special session to finish that part of it?
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but I imagine everybody would be fine if we're really at the precipice and we just can't make it due to the workload.
And I'm going to go back to our, both our partisan staff and nonpartisan staff are fabulous. They really do their best to make us look good, and they do their best for the state of Minnesota. They are committed to helping the state of Minnesota and helping this process go smooth. And as the speaker said, they've performed miracles before, so we're still holding hope that they can physically get this done in time, because that's our goal.
Can you talk about the nursing home funding and any language that might be being considered to target nursing homes that are in crisis or in danger of closure?
So we had
Come close to the microphone, just in
sorry.
case.
We had a lot of discussion in the Health and the Human Services Department Committee. I know Senator Hoffman has been working with Representative Knorr and Senator Abler all year on trying to find that work. There's the issues of how it interferes with their rates, so they don't have to pay it back, because it doesn't help them if we give them the money, and then their rates get reduced, or they have to pay it back. And so they've looked at several deals to make this happen and several ways to make it happen. And so they will be meeting today, possibly even right now, a group of representatives, a group of senators, and the administration, again, trying to figure out how to best make this work. And it goes back to that workforce retention fund, because that will help the nursing homes, but they would like to be able to, how do we best help some of those nursing homes? I know my nursing home that I hear from, I think it's like the first time they've had to dip into their line of credit. We have nursing homes that we know are dipping into their line of credit to pay a loan back before it defaults. And so there are some nursing homes struggling. Not all nursing homes, but some are struggling. So how do we best help those nursing homes? Because they are across the state, and we want to make sure, if somebody can't take care of grandma, and then that goes back on the family, and that's just a lot of additional stress for the family. So we, again, it's in this bill because we agree it's an important issue, and we want to make it work for both the nursing homes and those people that live there and their families.
And the way I would think about that 300 is 75 million a year over the next 4 years. Some of the discussions we had last night were about the desire to have it spread evenly over the next 4 years. And I think in terms of the Department of Human Services and the nursing home industry, it may be a lot easier to deal with 75 million a year for 4 years rather than 300 million at one time.
I think if my math is right, you'll have some money left over in your target on the bottom line for capital investment. Is that just come in the form of another cash bill next year? What do you do with that? Where does that go?
Yes, I believe we have 828 million left in the bonding target, and then we have built into the budget forecast the ability to do an $880 million general obligation bond bill. And we've been talking with the Republicans throughout. We would love to have this be a bipartisan process from the beginning next year. Hopefully they won't sit on the sidelines and put our nonpartisan staff through this exercise next year, because I think we could have a very balanced 880 GO and 828 cash bill next year, which is what the state should be doing about annually right now.
Well, I was gonna ask, I mean, a $2.6 billion package is pretty large, but you think there's room to then come back next year and do another one that's $1 billion
Yeah,
plus?
because, I mean, you saw last year, in 21 and 22, Republicans completely blocked bonding. So we've had 2 years without any bonding bill. So we're playing catch up at this point. This $2.6 billion bill that we will be passing this year is not that big when you look at its 3 years of bonding in one.
And you look at the need across the state. I mean, the DNR properties, there's millions of dollars in deferred maintenance there. You look at the public housing, there is millions in deferred maintenance there. And I agree that's a lot of the federal, but there are residents, they're Minnesota residents, so we do want them to live in safe housing. And so there are needs across the state, and they just keep growing every single year. So we should be keeping up.
Sounds like bonding will inevitably be the last, based on the paper push, but how do you see the other remaining budget bills, tax bill, in terms of floor votes in the next?
Do you want to speak to that?
I will continue to say, as I said all year, I don't have a crystal ball, but we're going to continue to have those conversations to make sure I have 34 votes on the floor.
In terms of timing, we'll be doing the tax bill today. I anticipate we'll be hopefully done by dinner, depending upon when we get the conference committee report. They just made a minor change in tax committee, a few minor changes, and caught some errors. So the reviser is revising the conference committee report, but we don't have a 12-hour rule anymore. So as soon as we get the conference committee report, we'll take it up on the House floor. We had talked to the Republicans last night about a debate going from about 1 p.m. to about 6 p.m. So we think probably in the House about 5 hours on the tax bill, which is why the Senate's not coming in until 4, because then we'll send the tax bill over to them. Anticipate that the transportation bill will be ready for action tomorrow, hoping health would also be ready tomorrow, but the health finance bill, health, children and families finance bill is a very complex bill, and we're still waiting for that conference committee report to even be proofread. So it could be that it's taxes Saturday, transportation Sunday, health and bonding Monday. And then Senate also has the Uber Lyft bill, and there is House File 402, which pertains to the hospital merger situation at the University of Minnesota. I'm trying to think if there's, and then there's a couple constitutional amendments floating around.
Yeah, there's also, we might be taking up later today, so Environment Natural Resources Trust Fund. The House has passed that. We heard it over here. I'll be honest, I'm on the LCCMR, so they came and met with me in January and February, and I pointed out my concerns in that bill. And then they've continued, my staff and the advocates and the author continued to meet while I was out. And now Senator Marty has kind of taken over and kind of shepherded that through to get some amendments that we think are good for that bill and good for the state of Minnesota. So if we can get that amendment done by today, we might bring that one up on the floor also today, because that's an important bill. Minnesotans want to protect their air, water, land, and they like to fish. And so hopefully we'll get that done today.
And keeping nurses at the bedside act, we spun off into a conference committee. They met yesterday. I believe they've closed a conference committee report. And so I'm feeling good about that. And I don't know if there's any other dogs and cats out there.
ERA.
Well, ERA had a hearing and rules this morning. I think it was about 45 minutes long. So we haven't really had the opportunity to dive into that in caucus. I know we have a lot of members who are still concerned about choice, because we were able to protect reproductive freedom in Minnesota statutes, but there has been some discussion about whether the Minnesota Constitution should also protect that. And so one of the conversations we've been trying to have with regard to the Equal Rights Amendment is its interplay with choice. And so the exact phrasing of that amendment, I think, is critically important. I don't know if we're going to be able to act on it before the end of this session, given that we have 3 days left. And I think that constitutional amendments are a fairly weighty concern. So I think, the senator and I are working hard on both of these constitutional amendments to make sure they're actually ready to go to the voters before we pass them out of the House and the Senate.
Do you mean concerns about choice, like that you might want to take up a choice amendment or combine them, or I just want to make sure I understand?
Exactly. I think there are some who have argued that the Equal Rights Amendment in and of itself does not protect reproductive freedom. I believe that it should. I strongly believe that it should. And so the question is, what do we need to do to it to ensure that that protection is there, if anything?
I've heard from a number of people that the governor opposed doing Minnesota Care for all adults, for all undocumented adults. But that is in the health bill, and so I'm just wondering how you brought him along, how you convinced him.
I would say you're misinformed because we have reached an agreement that is supported by the House, Senate, and the governor to provide that coverage.
The governor didn't oppose it?
The governor supports it.
No.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Wait, I think we have one more. With the Sanford Fairview merger,
Yeah.
is the public interest language, is that safe?
It should be. I mean, my understanding is that Representative Bierman and Senator Wickland are really close to agreement with everyone. It's a pretty short bill. That is one of the ones that's sitting on the Senate floor.
So I know, because I represent the University of Minnesota, I've had conversations with the U, with the author, with some of the advocate groups, and helped work on that bill somewhat. And I know Senator Wickland has been working on it while doing 2 conference committees, and working with Representative Bierman. And so I think their agreement, and we're working to, again, I don't have a crystal ball, but making sure we have 34 votes and where we're at.
Thank you. Thank you.